You won't believe the amount of stuff that came in this collection that I purchased recently. But why would I want this much stuff? Stick around and find out. What's up, wrestling fans, trading card collectors? Welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Cards. So if you've been with me for a while now on this channel, or if you follow me on social media, you know that I pretty frequently, semi-regularly, want to buy out collections and bulk. However, I think there's this misconception out there that everything I'm buying is just straight up wrestling cards. But that is not always the case. Sure, I buy a lot of straight up wrestling, but a lot of times I get collections that have wrestling in it, or sometimes it has no wrestling in it. So you may be asking, why would you want cards that are not wrestling related if you're hosting primarily a wrestling focused channel? Why would you want this many cards from a quantity perspective if you're not a hoarder? Well, there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of actual hidden benefits that you get, or that I get personally when I'm buying out these collections. And I will expand on those in this video throughout, but hey, let's start with the initial contact of how this whole transaction took place. If you're active in the wrestling card space of collecting and conversing about wrestling cards, you probably know Caleb Edkins, aka Collecting with Caleb. I'm sure you've seen him on social media, and he has a YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to that. And he was one of the forefront guys pushing indie cards, kind of a connoisseur, talking about them, gathering up the knowledge about them. But anyway, Caleb reached out to me knowing that I buy collections. He was wanting to know if I wanted to buy this massive collection from him. Now, I had done some smaller deals with Caleb in the past, selling, buying, trading, so I knew this was probably going to be a pretty smooth deal. But of course, I do what I normally do during these transactions, and I immediately asked, how many cards are we talking? What kind of cards are we talking? How are we logistically going to do this because we live states apart? What's your price? What are you looking to get out of this, etc. So I find out that this collection is well over 100,000 items. And I say items because it's primarily cards, but there's also some signed memorabilia and some other random stuff in here as well. I also find out from Caleb that this is his dad's collection. We're talking stuff from the 90s all the way up to today. And I think there's even some vintage stuff and random oddballs thrown in there. I don't know, I haven't made it through all the boxes yet. You'll see more of that in a minute about the quantity. But Caleb's dad apparently loved to rip wax and then just kept the stuff from what I can see. He also loved going and getting in-person autographs, which there's a lot of that stuff in here as well. For me, buying this and kind of flipping through a few boxes, some of it's already been listed on my eBay store, but I honestly haven't had the time to go through a lot of it yet. But it's really fun for me to go through and look at these cards and these items, and it's kind of a time capsule for these different eras, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and then we've got some of the 2020s, which, you'll see some baseball prospects or some football rookies that come out in the early 2020s that have already flamed out of the league, and it's just interesting to kind of look through these cards and see stuff like that. But anyway, Caleb said this collection was in his mom's house and she was done with it, wanted to get rid of it, making some space. Caleb also mentioned that he was going to be going to Missouri anyway within like a month or so, and we could just meet approximately 45 minutes from where I live. And of course, we went back and forth on the pricing and logistics, as I mentioned, and dates and times and all of that. But we finally came to a deal within a matter of days. Very simple. Fast forward a month or so, and I finally get to meet Caleb, the man himself, Collecting with Caleb in person. So first off, this trade was worth it just to interact in person with somebody who I've been following and chatting with for a few years now online. Finally getting to meet them in person. That was great. We had some great pizza. Caleb can vouch for that. And we had a great time just talking about wrestling and wrestling cards and just life in general. So that was a blast. But before we did that, we needed to get those cards loaded because there is no way that I'm going to be loading that many cards on a pizza stuffed stomach. He opened his car when we started moving these things. I thought, have I bit off a little bit more than I could chew here? And no, that's not a pizza pun. I just barely got all that stuff in my car. But away I went. And I went and unloaded it, and this is what it looks like now. Yeah, as you can see, that is a lot of cards. I mean, more than probably the average person ever has in their lifetime. So again, you look at all this stuff and you may ask, why would I want all of this stuff if it's primarily not wrestling? Well, first and foremost, as I stated, it was a great opportunity to meet up with a fellow collector in person. Again, had a blast catching up, great pizza. And it's not, I don't know about the rest of you watching this, but it's not like I could walk out my door or go to the local card shop and interact with a wrestling card collector. There's just not a lot of them out there in my area. And secondly, it was great to be able to help people out. And what do I mean by that? Well, Caleb, again, was facilitating this deal to get these things out of his mom's house that she no longer wanted. She doesn't collect, to my knowledge. She didn't want these things. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, just that one of those hidden benefits is that when you're buying bulk, when you're buying collections, you're actually really helping people. You're taking a burden that that person has, kind of taking that off their plate, so to speak. You're giving them money for stuff they don't want, stuff they don't need, and they get that space. But you're also saving them the time and effort that it would go into listing, or if they wanted to try to sell all of this stuff individually themselves. And I get it. Some people don't have the time or don't want to take the time to actually sell on eBay or Sportlots or ComC or whatever it is. They don't want to deal with shipping. They don't want to deal with individually pricing the cards. Some people don't even like to do this at card shows, and you know who you are. And being able to get rid of that stuff all at once to somebody and not have to deal with anything else, it's just great for them from a time and effort perspective. And lastly, I bought all this stuff as a business decision. You see, a few years ago, when I started selling lower end stuff on eBay, it wasn't to start a business. It was only to create a self-sustaining hobby, which is something that I think a lot of people should still do. I've told this story before, but to make it really quick, basically I bought a $15 4-row box, or 5-row, I can't remember, and it was junk. It had a bunch of miscellaneous stuff, unsorted, all years, all types of cards. There was wrestling, sports, Power Rangers, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and what I would do is dig through the stuff. If I wasn't interested in it, if it didn't fit my PC or something I wanted to start collecting, put it on eBay, and then I would take that money and reinvest it back into the PC. Again, creating that self-sustaining hobby. You don't have to pay for your PC items out of your 9-to-5 check or whatever money you're bringing in. I would really recommend everybody do that likes to build a better collection. But as I continued doing this, as I continued to buy more of these junk boxes, or I would find somebody that had a few hundred cards that just wanted like $5 for them. The more I got into this, the more I started really enjoying the actual process. All the things that go into it that most people hate. Sorting, listing, shipping, dealing with customer service issues, tracking spreadsheets, everything like that. And all of that stuff became one of those hobby adjacent activities for me, kind of like creating content. Then came the money. And I would say this probably really the light bulb went off for me in like 2023, which is ironic because the market was down for the most part, and it still is compared to that pandemic boom. But I noticed that my numbers were at a point where I told myself, you know what, I'm looking at this and I'm looking at my regular W-2, and I'm just thinking if I have the time to be able to focus on scaling this up even more, I could legitimately make a living doing this. So when I bought this collection from Caleb, I knew that this amount of inventory with this much variety and quantity was going to be the big tipping point for me to make that big time life decision and hopefully set me up for a great future career. So at the end of the day, for me buying out this massive collection, it was a win for everyone. Me and Caleb got to hang out in person after a few years of communicating online. Both myself and Caleb were able to help his mom out by getting rid of that stuff she doesn't care about and doesn't want. So now she's got all that space. This collection, again, provides plenty of inventory for me to go full-time in this soon. And lastly, something else I haven't mentioned that people probably don't think about is when I'm buying this much quantity of stuff that's just sitting in boxes, collecting dust, rotting away, so to speak, I'm able to then take these cards and get them to the end user, the people who actually want these cards for their collection. Whether it's a base card, whether it's an in-person auto, whether it's a rare 90s insert. There's a collector out there for everything, and I'm going to get these cards into the right people's hands. And there you have it, just some behind-the-scenes information of stuff that kind of goes through my mind and what goes into creating a big purchase like this, making a deal with another collector or a dealer. And also how big purchases like this can sometimes have a domino effect that actually affects more people in a positive way than you may think from just the initial, here's the money, give me your cards. I hope you enjoyed today's video and a kind of peek behind the curtain of what's going on with me and how I look at buying collections. But if it did bring you some value, hit that subscribe button, give me a like, and spread the word. Tell a friend, tell a collector, no matter what they collect, tell a wrestling fan. First off, tell a wrestling fan about wrestling cards. We're still fighting that uphill battle. But tell them about this channel if you think they would enjoy it. And when you're done with that, check out all the links in the show notes below this video for all the ways you can help show your support for my content. Links to my eBay store that I featured, and you will see a lot of the cards in this collection start showing up in that store eventually. Links to Wrestling with Cards on Patreon if you want even more content. Links to my social platforms and much more. Also, if you have bulk or a collection that you no longer want, you want to get rid of it, you want to sell it, you want to trade it, reach out to me. I'd love to kind of help you out with that. Maybe I could take a bunch of your bulk and trade it for a bigger card I have in my store, or just pay you cash. It's a case-by-case basis how I approach these collections, but again, if you got stuff you don't want, reach out to me. We can at least have a conversation about it. Also, stay tuned for more Wrestling with Cards live episodes, where there will be some episodes that I'm just going to grab a random box. We're going to go treasure hunting together. We're going to see what kind of great cards or duds, who knows, we can find within these boxes in this collection. So that should be fun. Stay tuned to that down the road. And until then or the next video, click the videos on the screen for more great wrestling card content in the archives of this channel. I'll see you there.